Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. We'll be back in a minute. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. He Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Hiramana Chari Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Radha Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Shodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Shri Radha Madhava ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Nitai Gaur Brahmanande Hari Hari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Momentito, por favor. So, I forgot to mention that my wife says hello to everyone. She's in Vrindavan now. So we were married here. We started our first business here. We bought our first house here. We bought our first decent car here. I made not my first CD, but I made first CD I ever made by myself. I made here.
Songs for Krishna's too?
No, actually that's true. I made two here. I made the first CD I ever made without anyone's help. I made here. And that was the first CD for kids I ever made. And then I made another CD, which I guess then was the second. But the second one was a bigger production. Yeah, and I had to pat myself on the back because I'm not really technically gifted. And yeah. Amongst other things that we did here. So we're reading from the first canto, third chapter, text 12. Did I already say Om Namo? Did I or no? I did, yeah. See, look at that. When you don't sleep enough, your memory goes like, I can't even remember what I just did. That's sad. Hare Krishna. Tataha Saptama Ākūtyam Rucer Ragyo Vayajayata Sa Yamadhyai Suragana. Excuse me. Apat Svāyambhuvantaram Tata Saptama Ākūtyam Rucer Yagyo Vayajata Yagyo Vayajayata. Yeah, I got that. Rucer Yagyo Vayajayata Yagyo Vayajayata. Sayamadhyay Suraghana Apat Svāyambhuvantaram Tata Saptama Ākūtyam Rucer Yagyo Vayajayata Yagyo Vayajayata Sayamadhyay Suraghana Apat Svāyambhuvantaram Ākūtyam Yāma Suraganar Svāyambhuvantaram Ta Saptama Ākūtyam Suragana Apat Svāyambhuvantaram Ākūtyam Jayata Antara. Ladies? Tata saptama Ākūtyam Jayagyo Vayajayata Yāma Jaya Suragana. Word meanings? Tataha. After that. Saptame. The seventh in the line. Ākūtyam. In the womb of Ākūti. Ruci. By Prajāpati Ruci. Yajña. The Lord's incarnation as Yajña. Abhyajayata. My tongue wants to say it the wrong way. It's Abhyajayata. Advented. Saha. He. Yāma Adhyay. With Yāma and others. Suraganai. With demigods. Apad. Ruled. Svāyambhuva Antaram. The change of the period of Svāyambhuva Manu. Hare Krishna. Can somebody go on my Facebook page and see if you can actually hear this? Sometimes I put a microphone on, it doesn't work. Translation. The seventh incarnation was Yajña, the son of Prajāpati Ruci, and his wife Ākūti. He controlled the period during the reign of Svāyambhuva Manu and was assisted by demigods such as his son Yāma. So this incarnation is called Yajña. This incarnation is called Yajña. And interesting incarnation, very interesting incarnation. Purport. The administrative posts occupied by the demigods for maintaining the regulations of the material world are offered to the highly elevated, pious living beings. That means demigods are the most pious. When there is a scarcity of such pious living beings, the Lord incarnates himself as Brahma, Prajāpati, Indra, etc. He couldn't find anyone to fulfill the job, so he would do it himself. Isn't that interesting? Like, how could he not find somebody qualified? So it seems like the job of these demigods is very specialized, and not everyone can do it, not everyone's qualified. During the period of Svāyambhuva Manu, the present period is of Vaishvata Manu. Vaishvata Manu. There was no suitable living being who could occupy the post of Indra, the king of Indraloka, heaven, planet. King of the Indraloka, heaven, planet. The Lord himself at that time became Indra. Assisted by his own sons like Yāma and other demigods, Lord Yajña ruled the administration of the universal affairs. So Indra is the king of heaven, so he's got a big job. Brahma is the creator, but apparently Indra is the one who's really managing, although Brahma does his job. And so this morning I did a search for Lord Yajña, And only two things came up, this verse and something else that just mentioned him. There's not much of a description. But when I read this verse, my immediate impression was, why doesn't Krishna just let this whole place go to hell? Because we're all the disobedient ones, and it's like, the jail is, it needs repairs, it needs renovation, but who, do we really care that much? It's all murderers and rapists, and do we want to spend money on them? But Krishna doesn't think like that. And I remember a lecture and Prabhupada said, a flower is a very low birth. Did you know that? Especially in impious. A flower that doesn't have any fragrance, that's even lower than a flower that has fragrance. Prabhupada said it's an impious birth. But Krishna, still, although it's impious, he makes it beautiful. He makes it very beautiful. So, so that was my thought when I read the verse. I thought, okay, this is a God for. Sometimes we say God forsaken. It's not actually God forsaken, but in a sense it's God forsaken, in the sense that Krishna lets us come here and create massive amounts of havoc and completely turn our back to him and completely neglect him and not listen to his advice. And still, we're reading every day about a different incarnation. And why are the incarnations coming? Because they like it here? They want to have fun? Krishna enjoys being Indra? Of course not. Why are they coming? Because of Krishna's affection for us. That sometimes Prabhupada would say, like this verse, Rasa hom apsukonteya prabhasmi. No, punyo gandha prativyam cha. I am the fragrance of the earth. And you think, well, I don't smell any fragrance of the earth. It smells kind of bad sometimes. No. What Krishna means is you get different fragrances from the earth when you plant different seeds. So I believe Prabhupada was referring to this verse, and he said, just see, you've all left Krishna, and still he's given you so many delicious things to eat. Like imagine if your children all said, forget you, I want nothing to do with you, I never want to see you, I don't want to hear your instructions, just turn their back on you. You might feel like, okay, if that's the way you feel, then I'm cutting you out of the will, which happened to me, and I'm sure it happened to several devotees whose parents didn't like the fact they were devotees. So that's a natural human response. Okay, forget it. You want to be on your own? Okay, do it. But Krishna's not like that. Although you could say he would be justified in doing that. So, and then the other thing, which is so interesting, so Krishna is saying, okay, you want to come to this world, this is not a good place, it's not a good decision, but you can do, here's Lord Yajña, but you can do Yajña, you can do sacrifice, and even though you're in this world, you could actually live nicely and peacefully. Although, we say this world is bad, it's bad because people make it bad, but if we actually followed Krishna's instructions, it wouldn't be bad. In fact, Prabhupada said, it would be like Satya Yuga, even though it's Kali Yuga. So, the world is bad because life is temporary. And of course there are many miseries, but they're reduced by following Krishna's instructions, doing yajna and so forth. So he's like, not only is he feeding us and taking care of us, but he's saying, yes, and you could live this way in this world if you follow these instructions and do this yajna, and it won't be bad at all. It'll be quite nice. I'll provide everything you need. And then, here are the Vedas, which have the whole means for getting out of this. So when you realize you made a mistake, you can come back to me. So we're never forsaken. And sometimes devotees say, well, I don't feel Krishna loves me. And I say, how could you not feel he loves you? Look at all the incarnations that have come. And specifically, Mahaprabhu and all the associates of Mahaprabhu that have come with him and come after him, and ultimately Prabhupada comes here and makes all the sacrifice. For who? For why? For their fun, for their entertainment, for their recreation? Of course not. For you, for me, for all of us. So to say that Krishna doesn't love you, it's not at all logical. Then, take it one step further. Lord Chaitanya comes in every Kali Yuga, but not in every Kali Yuga does he give the Premanam, does he give love in the mood of the residents of Braja. So now he comes in that mood to give all of us totally unqualified. Completely. You actually know nothing in our history that qualifies us to even, as we were saying yesterday, to even for Krishna even to give us the time of day. And then he comes and he says, here's love of Krishna. And in the holy name, and every day we're chanting the holy name, and then to think Krishna doesn't love me when he's giving me the holy name, which is personification of prema, it doesn't make sense. So sometimes when devotees are chanting and they're not really that absorbed, I tell them, just remember that the holy name is Krishna's, it's love in sound. It's Krishna's throwing his fishhook, so to speak, out to you to pull you back. That's what it is. So you say, I don't feel anything when I'm chanting. I say, well, meditate on that. Feel that, because that's what Krishna's doing. And in, I think, Harinam Chintamani, it says that the most valuable thing Krishna has in his treasury is his holy name. And you might think, oh, that makes sense. It's valuable to us, most valuable thing we have. But it's saying, in his treasury, valuable to him. So you're thinking, well, does he chant his holy name? What does it mean? No, the most valuable thing to Krishna is his devotees. And the most valuable thing is the rasa between himself and his devotees. So the holy name will awaken that relationship. That's why it's the most valuable thing he has. I joke that if you ask Krishna, give me the most valuable thing, of course some people would say, no, Radharani, that's my most, of course you can't argue with that, but I joke that he would give you a mantra card, here, this is the most valuable thing I have. That's it, I don't get diamonds and this, no, a mantra card. Because with this mantra card, I can get your heart back because you won't give it to me. And I'm suffering, I want your heart. I feel an emptiness. God is full and he feels an emptiness because he doesn't have your heart. And last night we were talking about false ego. And false ego means you identify something as yours and you use it for yourself. So we've identified the body and the mind and consciousness as ours. And then we say, you have to surrender that to Krishna. And I don't want to surrender, that's heavy. That word has such a negative connotation. But it's not actually surrender, you just have to give back what you've stolen. You've stolen your own mind and heart. It doesn't belong to you, it belongs to Krishna. And so you just have to give it back. That's what surrender means. Surrender. I'm not going to surrender. No, you stole my money, surrender it back, give it back. So when we say surrender, it's just giving back what belongs to Krishna. And so that's what he wants. So this morning I was meditating on just being I was meditating on how ungrateful I am. Sometimes we don't take advantage of the process of devotional service. That's a sign of being ungrateful, isn't it? I mean, we don't necessarily think of it that way, but it is. If I were more grateful, I would be more serious about what I was given. Let's say you give me money, Mahatma Prabhu, thank you for coming, here's $100,000. And then you see a picture of me on Facebook riding in a $100,000 Mercedes. How would you feel? Feel like, well, he's so ungrateful. I gave that for preaching. He's not using it properly. So here's sadhana bhakti, here's Krishna consciousness. No, I think I'll just sleep. I think I'll chant tomorrow. So we might say, I'm weak, we might say I'm lazy, but I think we should also say we're not grateful for what we have because we'll utilize what we're grateful for, isn't it? And the more, look what Prabhupada has given, look at the sacrifice he's made. How grateful are you? So, for example, how grateful are we for the sacrifice Prabhupada made for writing his books? Well, the answer is, how often do you engage with the books? That's how grateful you are. I mean, that's one way of answering it. It's hard to say I'm grateful and not engage with the books on a regular basis, and not feel totally dependent on those instructions. How grateful are you that you have the holy name? Well, that depends how you chant it. How grateful, anything, how do you use it? So I think this is a nice meditation. And another meditation, another thought I was having is this verse in Bhagavatam spoken by Lord Brahma, that a devotee thinks, whatever happens to me, it's actually just a fraction or a token of what I deserve. The suffering I'm getting should be worse, but Krishna's minimizing it. But when we look at our own mentality, it's rare that we naturally think that way. We might come to that realization once we process it. But obviously a higher state of Krishna consciousness would not be you have to process it, you would just feel that way. Oh, something bad happened. Immediate response is, I know I deserve worse. But how many of us feel that way? We're always thinking, I deserve more. And that interferes with gratitude, doesn't it? So when we realize that we deserve worse, we can be grateful that the worse isn't happening and Krishna is allowing us to engage in his service. And of course, being in the material world is always going to be a problem. But devotees in general live fairly nice lives. You all look pretty fat and happy. You've got nice clothes on. I'm sure you have a roof over your head. You're not sleeping in the park. So, of course, we could complain about so many things. But the mood of the devotee is I don't deserve Krishna's mercy. And that's where so much appreciation comes. When you feel you don't deserve something, you naturally appreciate it when you have it, isn't it? So if you give me something, and it doesn't make sense that you would give it to me because I didn't really do anything to deserve it, you say, Prabhu, come over to my house, and then you have this brand new car, and say, I want to give you this car. I'm like, why? What did I ever do for you? No, it's like, how much appreciation would you have for that act if you didn't do anything to deserve it? And so everything we're giving, we haven't earned. So it's kind of paradoxical that we wouldn't be appreciative for everything, isn't it? Because it's all a gift. We didn't deserve it. It's all being given. And what a paradox to say, I don't feel Krishna loves me, I don't feel my Guru loves me, I don't feel Prabhupada loves me. Every Guru is only doing that seva because his Guru asked him to. He said, you give mercy to others. And so that Guru sacrifices his life to give mercy. And how could we say we're not loved? It doesn't make sense. We're not only loved by one Guru, we're loved by many Gurus, isn't it? I always joke with my wife, I say, materially, I'm like too detached for my own good. Because sometimes I neglect things, I just neglect. And Krishna always, it's so funny, she recognized this also, because she's a little bit that way as well. We don't care that much all the time about material things, and sometimes, if you don't care enough, something lapses and you forgot to take care of it, it creates a problem. And through our whole life, at least since the time we're married, we always see that in those lapses where we were negligent, Krishna always somehow fills it up, somehow or other, Kind of like you fall asleep in the car and then your car, skids and falls in some mud and it can't go and then you wake up. Something like that Krishna would just come and take care of you. So we see that in our life over and over again. We forget to do something or make a blunder and then Krishna covers for us. So I think you all see that in your life. And so how is it possible not to be in appreciative mode? That's what I was meditating on this morning, and I was thinking that I should have so much more appreciation than I do. It just doesn't make sense that we wouldn't be appreciating all the time everything that we're given. Of course, Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, we talk about him and what he's given and the gifts and so on. But this is a moment-to-moment. This should be a moment-to-moment reality. That here, Krishna is coming to do the job of Indra. That's amazing, He's got better things to do, right? But he cares. There's no one to do it. And this is the prison, and he cares about the well-being of the prisoners. Enough that he, there's no prison guard. Okay. It's like there's no prison guard. Donald Trump says, okay, I'll do it, No politician would ever do that in a million years, Donald Trump or anyone. Not a criticism of him, nobody would do it, right? So this is really, in a sense, inconceivable, isn't it? That Krishna would come in that position, incarnate. But at the same time, we can say when you look at every incarnation, why are they incarnating? They're incarnating for who? You and me. That's who they're incarnating for. Not for fun, not because they like to come down here, but they're incarnating for you and me. Oh, of course, with Hiranyakashipu, Krishna wanted to come and have fun. But ultimately, what's behind it all is the Leela that would attract us back. Right? So ultimately, it's for us, isn't it? So that was my meditation on this verse. And we started late, and it's late. So I will stop and see if there are any questions. And if you, on the internet, you want to ask questions, I don't know if I'm going to see them because it's kind of going strange right now. It's just your name keeps showing up over and over again. So can one of you write Hare Krishna? Just so I want to see if it actually comes. Because if you did ask a question, I didn't see it. All I see is your names keep coming up. Looks like 480 people. Oh yeah, okay. You can write something, okay. Hare Krishna. So, yes. I was reading the other day about Prabhupada talking about chastising. And he was saying, the Guru only has love. There's nothing else comes out of him. So when he's chastising you, he didn't say it this way, but the connotation was it's like the mother pulling the kid out of the street because the car is coming, and the kid's crying because it hurt, and she grabbed his wrist and it hurt him. And then when he understands, you would have died if I didn't do that. Oh, then it's, you didn't hurt me on purpose. So Prabhupada was saying that when the Guru chastises the disciple, he's doing it to save the disciple from making a mistake. And it's his duty, and he must do it, and it's only out of affection. There's no question that the Guru doesn't like the disciple. And if the Guru is angry with the disciple, it's for the disciple's benefit. So in that way, Prabhupada was saying, there's no question of the Guru having any other emotion towards the disciple than affection and favorable emotions. There's no question of the Guru not being interested in the well-being of the disciple, even though sometimes it comes out as chastisement, and of course, nobody likes to be chastised because our sense of self gets depleted and it makes us feel bad. But if we understand, no, this was actually out of love and affection that they've done it, then we can feel the affection even in the chastisement, and we can be happy that our gurus only love us. That's all. They only care about us. And we have so many gurus and so many well-wishers. And it's I don't know, maybe some of you know, there's a verse. I vaguely remember a verse that's saying that, we know this verse, the earth cannot tolerate a liar. Or was it the earth cannot tolerate a lawyer? What was it? I forget the verse, yeah. Same thing. So he can say it because he's a lawyer, I can't say it. Although I said it, but I vaguely remember something like there's no person lower than an ungrateful person. Did Krishna tell that to the gopis or somewhere? Nothing's lower than an ungrateful person, but it makes sense. I don't have the exact reference. Shakespeare. Shakespeare is good enough. I think Krishna expanded himself in some of the things he said. But it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, you're given something and you're not grateful. What kind of person are you? And one of the most interesting things about the Vedas is they describe qualities of asuras, but they also describe qualities of non-humans, subhuman, like what is considered civilized and what's below civilized. And basically, your standard average person in this world doesn't really make it to the human form by those standards. You criticize politicians, they're this, they're that, but they're pretty much the way everyone is. And those are the qualities that are considered not human yet. Like you become angry. I was reading this morning the divine and demoniac qualities, the first verse. It's so funny, the first word is Dumbo, which means pride. You Dumbo? Yeah. Dumbo Darpa, pride and arrogance, and harshness and conceit and so forth. And I was like, wow. We can recognize these qualities. They're quite common, aren't they? Yeah, they're quite common amongst certain people in the forefront. So what was my point I was making? This is like a subhuman quality. You're not even appreciating what you're given. Like what could be so low? But I just wanted to make the point that these qualities which are considered subhuman are things like not being clean, getting angry, not being forgiving, not like major like Adolf Hitler type things. Just, you're not really considered a civilized human being because you're angry, you're envious, you're harsh, you're not forgiving. What to speak of not appreciating? You had a question, comment?
That's really heavy to think. Have something of those qualities.
Yeah, and we think we're devotees. That's the icing on the cake. Yeah. I'm a devotee. Well, maybe you should think about becoming a human being first. That might help your bhakti, might help you get up there. Yes. But it's true. I mean, we see that in these demoniac qualities that sometimes surface because they've been well cultivated for lifetimes. And we wonder, how is it that I'm a devotee and this surfacing? And the answer is, well, are you a devotee? Because how is it that you would have all these qualities if you're like, oh, okay, I'm trying to be a devotee and there's some devotional quality. Okay, yeah, we're trying and there's something there. But, a reflection. How much is bhakti is there and how much of this other stuff is there and what does it mean? It's always good to be humble and be honest. We are challenged. And being a devotee, no, I'm trying. And I'm just praying Krishna doesn't kick me out and lets me engage in service. And I'm trying to follow as best I can. You wanted to say something?
What do we do when, we feel gratitude, but then we see loved ones who are devotees, and we say, well, why aren't they getting something they need, or why something bad happens?
Something bad, yeah. This is, Dharma's asking the question, if we say that devotees are taken care of, but sometimes we see something is lacking, or maybe some unfortunate situation comes. How is that? I was just reading how Prabhupada was saying, if you just take shelter at Krishna's feet, you'll always be taken care of. And so maybe it's how we define being taken care of, and maybe these other things are necessary for purification. I think, with our American standard, it's like, how come you have a 5,000 square foot home and I don't? Krishna doesn't love me. sometimes we might go in that direction. And there is some karmic influence also due to past activities. There's something is there. As we can see, not all devotees just have the same standard of living or the same degree of success. So generally we would answer that these are things that are needed, and these things will help the devotee if they allow themselves to react in the proper way. And it may be, residual karma that they have to go through. And acceptance is always the key. If let's say your life is great and I live next door to you and my life is miserable, so then it's really hard for me to accept my situation because I look at you and everything's going great for you. And acceptance is a real key element, that this is what's happening to me, this is who I am, this is what I have created in this life or a past life. And I need to be able to accept that and also try to understand what I'm supposed to understand from all this. And maybe there's nothing more to understand than acceptance, that this is how it is, that I have a material body, I make choices, and there are consequences, and this is where I am. Sometimes the choices are innocent, but the consequences are not. And we can reflect, I made this choice. I get on the freeway, someone slams into me. Okay, it's their fault, but I chose to go on the freeway. So possibility of that happening is there. So I can't blame them entirely. And ultimately, this sounds insensitive. It's a philosophical statement, because if we're suffering, we don't want to be insensitive. But when we're suffering, ultimately, well, Prabhu, you were the one who did decide to take birth here and take a body. If you didn't make that decision, you wouldn't have this problem right now, whatever that problem is. You're being sued or divorced, or you broke your knee or whatever. Well, if you didn't have a material body, you wouldn't have this problem, and ultimately you wanted it. So I wouldn't, necessarily tell that to someone who's not ready to hear it, but it's a reflection we can make on ourselves. That, whatever suffering there is, ultimately, the pain in my knee, or the this or that, or the pain in the neck that someone's giving me, this or that, it's, well, what did you expect? It's like going into the prison and complaining about the food. Well, when you rob the bank, you should have considered that prison food isn't that good. And you might get caught. So, of course we'll say, well, I didn't know when I came here it was going to be like that. Okay, we didn't know, but you know now. So now you have no excuse. So now if we're suffering, and our suffering is created by our ignorance, so who are we to blame? You can't blame Maya, you have to blame your choice to be in Maya, right? Like sometimes we say Maya's strong. In some ways, it's an excuse for my weakness. What do you expect? Maya's strong, isn't it? So you may not be conscious that you're actually making an excuse by saying Maya's strong. You think you're just talking philosophy. You might just be making an excuse, right? Maya's strong. What did Prabhupada say? No, it's not like that. You're weak. Your purpose is, Maya's strong. No, your purpose is weak. That's what it is. That's how Prabhupada wanted us to see it. So, it's good to be honest about these things. Yes? We have some questions here. I'm going to give them a break. Let me see if I can find their question, if you can hold on a second. The way this is working now, it's like your names keep coming up, and so to find your questions, I have to filter through like name after name. Now I don't think I can find it. I don't know. Is anyone a Facebook expert on why these names keep coming up? Yeah, I don't. We're responsible. Get reality as it is. So how can we change it if majority do not? Cows are so mystical. Did you have experience with service with cows? Yes, I did. I'm not sure the question. We're responsible to get reality as it is. So how can we change it if majority do not? Not sure what you're asking. How can we change reality? I don't think you can. You can change the way you see your reality. And as far as others, I think you're asking, how can we change if the other person doesn't change? Like, let's say I'm harassing Dharma, and he wants to be a nice guy, and I'm always pinching him and disturbing him. So how can he be a nice guy if someone's pinching him all the time? Prabhupada said, an advanced devotee does not allow anyone or anything to affect him. That's the answer. There is no other answer. And then you can think, Dharma can think, oh, Krishna sent Mahatma to help me learn how to be tolerant. I need to practice tolerance, so here's something to tolerate. And, how am I going to practice tolerance if there's nothing to tolerate? Right? Can't practice anything unless, like you want to practice boxing, so they get another guy to fight with you, and they'll get an old, ex-heavyweight champion and fight with him, And if he's stronger than you, you'll come up. But if he's weaker, that doesn't help, So what do they say? Sometimes God sends an enemy to teach you compassion, like that. Yes. I'm reminded of this choice, especially when I ride the New York City during rush hour, the NYC, the subway. Everyone is suffering. But it reminds me that I chose to take this body, So, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, if things don't go the way you want them to, you did make the choice to come into a world where you have very little control, even of your own body or mind. You can get an illness and your body starts doing things. Like I couldn't remember a minute ago. It's very frustrating when you can't control your own body and mind, isn't it? Well, we made that choice. Yes, you're on.
Thank you for some really nice points, especially about the point of being grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Especially being grateful to your Guru Maharaj. And I was thinking, sometimes we are grateful to our Guru, our Parampara. And I've heard that sometimes devotees or disciples are trying to be very close to their Guru. When Srila Prabhupada was here, everybody was trying to get just closer, physically closer. And if you can, then...
if you can or can't?
If you cannot, If you cannot, then you start getting this feeling that, maybe I need some more appreciation or something.
Yeah.
So how do we...
Recognition.
Yeah.
Well, first thing I would like to say is there were some devotees who weren't trying to get close because they felt closer through service. Like, for example, you've heard of Jayananda Prabhu, and sometimes when Prabhupada was giving darshan, he would say, where's Jayananda? And they'd say, oh, he's doing service. He felt closer to Prabhupada doing service, and he felt like, why should I sit in the room and do nothing when I could be actually serving Prabhupada? So he felt closer doing service. So that's one aspect of your question to take into consideration. And the other aspect of your question is, if I'm not close, then I may feel like I need some recognition to know. No, so, okay. So...
Or when you see others closer, you get...
jealous of them, yeah. Well, I think the example of Jayananda partially answers that question, that I can actually get close through service, and I can feel reciprocation through service. And what to speak, like now, for the disciples of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, the disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, the disciples of Gaura Govinda Maharaj, Prabhupada's disciples, how do they get close now? But if you ask them, do you feel close to your Guru Maharaj? Many, or if not all, will say, yes. Some will say, I feel closer now, because I've had to really really grasp who he is. And the only way I can get close now is through hearing his instructions and following them. Where I could get so-called close before, physically. So I think that's important, because if we don't get that, then when our guru departs, we're going to have a very difficult time, because we were used to the physical association. Now, as far as wanting recognition, I can definitely say for myself, and I think I can speak for all the disciples of Prabhupada, we wanted to tell him good news, news of successful preaching, and we wanted him to smile and say, yes, very good. But that was a different kind of recognition. It wasn't based on false ego. It was based on knowing that I'm pleasing him. So if you want that, that's good. If you want the other recognition, and it's out of envy or jealousy, that actually has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. And that's something we have to learn today or tomorrow or sometime while we are still in this body to overcome. Because it actually has no place in the spiritual world. It's very firmly situated in the material world. And we are somehow or other going to have to learn to be okay with who we are, and maybe we're not the number one disciple, and be okay with that, and be happy that my god brother or god sister is the number one. Somehow or other, that's the challenge we have to learn. So to want to be acknowledged that you've done something, you did book distribution, to be acknowledged that, Guru Maharaj, are you pleased? That's different than I want to be put in front of the temple and announced that I'm the man this week. We don't want that. We want to be in the back of the temple where no one sees us, no matter what we've done. So we want to please our Guru Maharaj, and we want to know he's pleased. So they asked Prabhupada, well, when we're serving you, how do we know you're pleased? Because we're supposed to please the Guru. And Prabhupada said, I asked the temple president. And he tells me, if he's pleased, then I'm pleased. If you're doing nicely. So the way I've adjusted this, if adjusted is the right word, is that if I sincerely try to serve my spiritual master's instructions, I take it for granted that he's pleased, because there's no reason to believe he isn't pleased, because he was always pleased when we did this. I make a sacrifice to serve him according to what he wants. I have to accept that he's pleased. Why wouldn't he be pleased? I'm doing what he asked me, and he was always pleased, and he's easily pleased. And we can turn that around. If I do what he doesn't want, then how can I think he's pleased? Because you have the opposite. And sometimes devotees think, oh, my Guru Maharaj would understand the fact that I can't follow this or do that or this or that, and rationalize it. No, we should be honest and say, no, I don't think he's pleased that you're doing this, because that would be the impetus to rectify it. I was just listening yesterday to Obby ROM Prabhu, and he said something which I have often thought about, but the way he said it just made a strong impression upon me. He was talking about Prabhupada dealing with disciples who weren't following the principles. And Obby ROM was basically saying Prabhupada was more or less in shock. He actually couldn't believe that someone would make a promise and not keep it, because in the world he grew up in and the world he lived in, people were ladies and gentlemen, and if they said they were going to do it, they did it, even if it was difficult, even if later they didn't want to do it. So, to think that the Guru would not be displeased when you disobey his instruction, no, don't think that way. And to think he wouldn't be pleased when you obey his instruction, don't think that way either. And you'll always be close. And again, if we don't learn this lesson, we'll have to learn it after they depart, and it'll be more painful that way and more difficult. You better learn it now. I tell a story of one of my godbrothers. It must have been 1975 or 1976, Prabhupada coming to Los Angeles, and I live in California in my formative Krishna conscious years. I grew up in California. And so Prabhupada was coming to LA, and the LA temple was very big, and all the devotees were there at the airport. And he told me that day, he said, today I'm going to distribute 108 books. Normally he distributed 20 or 30. Today he's going to stay out long enough to distribute 108. And he said, if I just see Prabhupada come through the airport, that's all I need. I just have to see him, and that will give me the inspiration. And he actually did it. And so I remember to this day, I went up to him, I said, Prabhupada's there. It was totally ecstatic. I say, teasing, are you going to come back with us? Like, here's where the nectar is. He said, no. He told me, he said, no, I saw Prabhupada. He just saw Prabhupada walk through. He didn't move from his Sankirtan spot. I saw Prabhupada walk through. He said, that's it. That's all I need. I'm good for today, and I'm good for the next year. So, a beautiful story of closeness, that I'm closer at the airport than going back. And then, one time, Prabhupada was in his garden with all his sannyasis. And Prabhupada asked, where's Tripurari Swami? And they said, oh, Prabhupada, he's out on Sankirtan distributing books. And Prabhupada said, oh, he's doing better service than all of you by going out there. You're sitting here. So, indirectly you could say, he's closer to me. Prabhupada's saying, he's closer to me than all of you, even though he's 10 miles away. So these things are important to remember. It's not, we can't see these relationships materially. There's a whole other dimension to them. And one of my disciples wrote me and said, I'm having all these dreams of Prabhupada, like I was there with him. Like these were my experiences. And I said, you must have been his disciple in your last life. Otherwise, why would you have? She's having dreams like she's the disciple. Interesting. So we're multidimensional here, where we were before. And sometimes I see younger devotees in the temple and I think, you could have been my Sankirtan partner in 1975, just based on your age, It's highly possible, isn't it? For us as older devotees, and devotees who may have died when they're 40, 50 years old, now they'd be like 20. And we could have been, associates. Who knows? Yes?
Thank you. One more question was, in the purpose of Prabhupada says that sometimes when there are no pious souls to take a position of Brahma or Indra, Krishna comes in to take that position. And I was thinking, I read it somewhere, I might be wrong, that when the Jivatma comes into the material world, they start as Brahma.
Yeah.
So then, if that happens...
Getting complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't fall into all the universes.
No, I'm not going there. But I'm just thinking that if we are so pious to start as Brahma, then what happens?
Oh, what happens after Brahma?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why are there no
Because the desire to control and enjoy, if it doesn't get purified, it's not that every Brahma wouldn't get purified, but if that desire to control and enjoy doesn't get purified, then it degrades the living entity. This is a natural downfall. But sometimes they also come, And then sometimes the demigods fall down in their tears when they're leaving their body because they lived such a nice life, and then they have to leave the heavenly abode, and they're crying and they're suffering, and the soul goes down in a tear, becomes a grain eaten by an animal, and they work their way up again. So the moral of the story is get out of here as soon as possible, because it's another answer. I think there's a urban legend, urban rumor, which is not true, which is an assumption we all make, that if I don't become Krishna conscious in this life, it'll happen in the next life. I'll be in a more advantageous position, but there's no guarantee that you'll be better off in the next life. You don't know. So in one lecture, Prabhupada said, he's quoting the verse about yoga brashta vijayate, you take birth in a Brahmin family or a wealthy family, and he said, so you take birth in a wealthy family, but let's say you didn't become purified because you still had some material attachment. And now you take birth in a wealthy family, and so mix those two together. There's a synergy between your material attachment and your opulent position. And maybe now you have this attachment, but there's no opulence. But because of your Krishna consciousness, you get born in Beverly Hills. And you think you're God's gift to the world, because I grew up pretty close to Beverly Hills. And I was just with my sister, and she was telling me how there's so little humility amongst the group of people we grew up with, more wealthy Jewish people in Los Angeles. As a group, their humility levels are very low compared to other groups. And so you're born in that situation, even though you're a devotee, and let's say you're born in this kind of culture where people are smarter, wealthier, think they're better. It's going to be harder for you. So even Lord Brahma, Lord Brahma was chasing his daughter, right? So the devotee said, Prabhupada, he's like the head of our sampradaya. How could he chase his daughter? And Prabhupada said, just try to understand, if he can do it, what about you? So that's what you take away. So that's the takeaway. Why didn't Lord Brahma go back to Godhead? Great question. And if he didn't, then what about us? We're in a tenuous situation. So now we have this advantage that we've been given Mahaprabhu's mercy, Prabhupada's mercy. And so we should understand, if we don't take the mercy, we have no hope. Even Brahma couldn't do it. Right? We'll just go straight down by our nature. And so without that kripa, even your Lord Brahma, you just go down. Or you're some demigod, you go down. You're Nalakuvera Manigriva, you go down. Nobody is spared. My sister was telling me. She's 72, and she's saying, I have all these friends who are getting, facelifts here, and cut here, and breast this, and rear end this, and, they're trying to look sexy so they can attract men. Right? 72, 73. Like, don't you think you should give up? Like, just call it quits and, go to Vrindavan? Yeah. So, and I'm thinking, look at it. We know the philosophy. The whole world is bound by this. And it's being shown to us all the time. And don't think that that's not going to happen to me. If I give up my spiritual life, if I offend a devotee, if I weaken my practice, if I offend the holy name, we'll be doing the same thing. You'll be there getting your Botox and, your hair transplants and dyeing your hair and, getting the fat cut off and wearing the sexy clothes. Don't think you won't do it. Or working. These people, they're like 75, they have so much money, they don't know what to do with it, and they're still working to make more money. Don't think we won't fall into that. We're fortunate. And as long as we accept that fortune, appreciate it, we'll be okay. So that's Prabhupada's. I think that answer is the answer you wanted. Prabhupada said, yeah, just see, Lord Brahma, what about you? Who are you in compared to Lord Brahma? How careful you have to be. And this was also a huge problem for us in the early days of the movement, because we thought anyone who became a devotee would never leave, because no one would be that stupid. And anyone who became a devotee would never again engage in material activity, because why would you? You're so happy and blissful, and you have so much knowledge. And then the first shockers came, where the senior elevated sannyasi leaves Krishna consciousness. And could you imagine for these fragile young devotees how that affected us? The most respected person or two falls down. You think, well, it's bad when a guru falls down. I think we were in more state of shock than when a guru falls down, because we thought these people are infallible. We never saw a fall down. Now, if your guru falls down, it's like, oh, well, what can you do? It happens, But, I mean, you wouldn't actually say it that way, but on some level you might take it that way because he wouldn't be the first anymore. But when this happened, we were in a state of shock. And the senior devotees, that's what they told us. They said, if he fell down, what about you? Think of that. Someone more advanced than me had trouble. I need to be careful. That was the message. So that's the message. If someone falls down, don't give up. Become more serious. And see what happened in around 1978. Well, no, it was about 1982. We had some trouble. That was when the first trouble hit big time in ISKCON. And then again it hit big time in 1986. And what I noticed at that time was, although it was only a few of the gurus that fell, some disciples were losing faith in their gurus, thinking, well, maybe he's next. Or maybe behind doors he's as fallen as the other ones. It was a loss of faith because of the falling of another guru. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I noticed this, it was very clear. I don't want to say it was pervasive, but I saw it in some devotees. They were losing faith in their guru because another guru fell. So it's difficult, and we don't want to lose faith when we see Lord Brahma can't do it, what to speak of me? No, you can do it, even though he couldn't. You have the process. Even though he fell, you can actually do it. But I worshipped him. I thought he was so far more advanced. No, you can do it even though he didn't. And you have to do it, and you have to be careful. That's the message. Otherwise, it can damage us. Well, this advanced devotee fell, why should I even try? And probably they're all fallen. It's just going to come out. And that's what they used to say. The people who kind of turned against ISKCON and said, yeah, this one fell, but they're all fallen. It's just being hidden, and it's all going to come out. So as soon as you say that, your spiritual life is over. Goodbye to you. Maha aparad. Because of one person's fault, you offend everybody. And then you spend the rest of your life offending. That's what happened to many people. They've been committing maha aparads for like 40 years, and then you can't get them to stop. It's like every day somebody winds them up, and they're out there condemning, the same people over and over again, saying the same things they've said a million times, which are all untrue, hoping that someone will buy into it. And so that's a ramification of not thinking, well, if Brahma did it, I have to be careful, because it could happen to me. As opposed to, well, Brahma did it, all the demigods are bogus. Everybody's bogus. It's Kali Yuga, there's only Prabhupada, nobody else. Then you have Ritvik, only Prabhupada, nobody else. Ritvik it's a loss of faith. Because a few people fell, that faith was lost, and therefore Ritvik. And Apasiddhanta was adopted so that these people could have faith. Interesting, isn't it? You can't, when you talk philosophy in this context, you have to talk psychology also. It was a loss of faith that fostered an apasiddhantic conclusion about Guru that you can't find anywhere in Shastra. And the proof that it's apasiddhantic and offensive is when a person adopts that philosophy, they start becoming offensive to people who are spiritual masters. So, and then they destroy themselves, and they destroy faith in other people. So faith is the foundation of your bhakti, and their service is to destroy it in the name of we're Prabhupada Nugas. It's amazing, isn't it? Think about it. They're on a mission to destroy your faith in your guru by teaching you that your guru illegally took this position of spiritual master, and he shouldn't, because only Prabhupada is a guru, and Prabhupada never asked him to do it. So now, but your guru has thousands of disciples, and thousands of disciples are doing well, spreading Krishna consciousness, so they have strong sadhana, the temple's growing, and they're trying to tell you, they're bogus. Well, if they're bogus, how did this happen? This doesn't happen when the guru is bogus. Plenty of bogus gurus out there, this is not happening. So they're trying to undermine the faith and guise it as some kind of revelation and philosophy. And so that's why it's so dangerous. And that's why not processing the fall of a senior is dangerous. Because it can destroy faith, and it could also destroy faith in yourself that you can even do it. So there are other things we could say about Ritvik, but that just comes to mind in this context. We're supposed to be faith builders, not faith destroyers. I had to learn this hard lesson. Here we are, we're all equal, we're all God brothers, you know. Sometimes we fight, we go on Sankirtan together, we sleep together, we wake one another up when they're snoring, we tell them you're eating too many sweets, you know, it's just like, and then the next day he's on the Vyasasan and Guru Puja is being done to him. That was tough, really tough. But I learned a lesson that saved me. Never interfere between the faith of the Guru and disciple, no matter what you think, unless that Guru has obviously fallen helplessly and cannot revitalize himself in Krishna consciousness, and he cannot perform the function of Guru. Your service is always instill faith in a person's, a faith in their Guru. You never should, it's like we say, don't get in the way between husband and wife, don't get in the way between Guru and disciple. You always want to foster faith, because faith is what is sustaining our Krishna consciousness. And if that faith is broken, it destroys us. So you always want to nourish faith, even if you don't agree. You think, well, you know, maybe I think this Guru has said something that maybe he shouldn't have said, but you have absolute faith in him, and what he said, it's not just my opinion, it's not a big thing. I will always do the best I can to ensure that you have faith in that person. That's so important. And so that's what happened. When a senior falls, then it opens up this Pandora box of faith being cracked. And then the Ritvik people, the alarm goes off and goes, now we can get in. Say, look he was bogus, we told you. All of you have gurus, they're all going to fall, they're all bogus. You're not Krishna conscious, you can't be, etc. And so they're faith destroyers, that's their mission. Their mission is to destroy faith. In the name of faith to Prabhupada, their mission is to destroy faith. It's really bad, really bad. And their impetus is not coming from something transcendental. It's coming from a very dark place. Wow. Does that make sense? How can I leave this body and go back to Krishna? Oh, that's easy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Chant without offense. In the last 28 years, I have failed chanting my rounds. Sometimes I chant more than 16 rounds. But most of the time, it doesn't last more than 4 or 6 weeks. Then I keep trying again. Then I failed again. And this has been like that for 28 years. The only thing I could recommend is getting a taste, because if you have a taste, it's hard to stop chanting. And you can go online and get my book, Japa Affirmations. I think that could help you on Amazon. Or if you're in Dallas, you can get it today for only $5 while they last. I should have brought the books to class. I'll bring tomorrow. Because if I just bring them Sunday, actually I should have brought, I have this book called Japa Affirmations, and they're probably going to sell out tonight at the program because I don't have that many. Someone want to go to my room and get them? Where's all my trusted disciples? They've disappeared. There's a box by the door. It has all the books, but at least the Japa books are the only ones. It's a little small. The only ones I don't have, I only have like 5 left.
You can bring them.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys want them, this is your big chance, because they're going to sell. Yeah. I love when you tell the stories about Prabhupada. They're so uplifting, eye-opening. I hope the younger devotees out there understand that you are opening the door to Srila Prabhupada to them, and they should listen, learn, and apply. Okay, all you younger devotees, listen, learn, and apply. No one any longer has to struggle with japa, because now the book, Japa Affirmations, is available to you. And so you can go on Amazon, Japa Affirmations, Mahatma Das. You can order Kindle version, or you can order a print version.
I have a question for you.
Yes?
What was something that really helped you in your devotional practice?
Well, I think the answer is subjective, because what helps me may not help you. But it's basically what our Shastra says. I lived in Mayapur. I lived in Vrindavan for 2 years. I lived in Mayapur for 6. That was tremendous. I don't think there's anything I could have done that would have had the same effect on me. Upgrading my japa to above 5 on a scale of 1 to 10. When I say 5 means you're not going up or down. Below 5, you're going down. Going down means 10 years from now, you may be worse off than you are now, at least in terms of the quality of your japa and maybe your general spiritual life. Above 5, you're going up. Consistently chanting good rounds, like not sometimes, but every day. Huge difference. Associating with devotees, especially my godbrothers. Studying Prabhupada's books regularly. It's synergistic also. And of course, giving Krishna consciousness to others, sharing it, teaching it. I have to do that, that's my nature. But the spiritual benefit, aside from my nature, there's a huge spiritual benefit doing it. I like to say that when all else fails, just get good association, that'll solve your problems. And like the devotees here is saying, I'm having trouble with my japa. Well, Bhaktivedanta Thakur says, chant with someone who doesn't have trouble. That is interesting that he said that. You might say, is it that easy? That's all I have to do is find someone that chants good japa and just sit next to them and chant? Well, sometimes yes. That's all you have to do. So we have this solution of Sangha, and Sangha is so powerful that if I'm lacking in some way, and you're not, just by me being with you, it will make up for my lack, because I'll get what you have. So that's like the emergency B12 shot, when you get depleted of B12, and you get a shot and just, you wake up and you run around the block 100 times. And nothing else you tried was giving you energy. Well, sometimes it's like that. That Sangha is like that. So we're waiting for Materna because if you want to get the japa books, I just offer to you because I want to reciprocate because you come to class. At least you can have first, because they'll sell tonight because I don't have that many at the program tonight. I don't know if he found them though. That's another thing. Yes.
I have a question for you. But first of all, thank you for that wonderful class.
You're welcome.
You mentioned about humility.
Yes.
You should always be humble. So I have a two-part question to humility.
Mm-hmm.
One is that humility is sometimes linked with low self-esteem.
Yes.
And how is it different?
Well, let's take this question and generalize it to how do you distinguish between something material and something spiritual, like lamentation? How do you distinguish if I'm lamenting, if it's spiritual or material? You want to look at how it manifests. What's the consequence of that? So if it's humility, the consequence will be different than if it's low self-esteem. Now you might say, but the acharyas, they seem to lament when they're describing all their faults, and that sounds like low self-esteem. But look at their lives. they're not walking around in this morose mood. I'm so bad, I'm so bad. Their humility is actually bringing them closer to Krishna. Krishna, I want you more. That humility makes them more dependent on Krishna. Because that's another aspect of humility, is that I need, because of my fallen condition, I need you. Low self-esteem is more of a helpless, like what's the use? I'm so bad, why try? I hate myself. A genuinely humble person doesn't hate themselves. They hate the fact they're not Krishna conscious, but they don't hate themselves. There's a difference, right? I'm so bad because I'm not Krishna conscious. That's one way of looking at it, but it's so bad that I'm not Krishna conscious. That's, it's bad that I'm not humble, but I'm so bad because I'm not humble. That's low self-esteem. It's bad that I'm not humble. That's humility. Humility also means that I think everyone's better than me. But if you have low self-esteem, you may think everyone's better than you, but you may not, because that thought would depress you. So a lot of times you adjust with low self-esteem and you become arrogant to try to make up for how you feel. So you will never see that kind of arrogance in a humble person, obviously. If they're humble, they're not arrogant. But you'll often see that in someone with low self-esteem. And a humble person can take feedback and criticism and correction. Low self-esteem, you can't. Actually, a humble person wants to be corrected. A humble person, they live very clearly with an understanding of where they lack, but it doesn't discourage or depress them. Low self-esteem, you get discouraged and depressed when you focus or meditate on what's wrong with you. I could go on, but I have if you go on my SoundCloud, there's a course called Self-Compassion and Self-Envy and Self-Compassion, and it talks all about this topic of being envious of yourself, what self-compassion means in a Krishna conscious context, what self-envy means. So it could be useful. You had another question?
It's similar to what you said, that you should always, it's always good to be always humble. So in the context that like in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was humble to Krishna, he surrendered to Krishna and received his instructions, and then after that, he went to war. So, how can we see his humility in that way? Because he was fighting.
Oh yeah. Well, it's actually very simple. He's asking, how can you see Arjuna as humble if he's fighting? Because fighting doesn't seem humble. Most people that I meet have very cloudy definitions of humility, or maybe we can say they're more material. If someone's attacking you and I attack them to save you, that's another manifestation of humility, and I'll explain why. Because Prabhupada said to do that. And if I follow Prabhupada's instructions, that's a sign of humility. If I don't follow his instructions, I'm proud. So when Arjuna said, I don't want to fight, he looked humble. He looked very sattvic and brahminical. But he was disobeying Krishna's instructions. And so, to disobey Krishna's instructions, even if you act humbly, is not humble. Right? And to follow Krishna's instructions, even if it looks like you're not acting humbly, is humility. Wow, there they are. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, there's in that box, yeah. So we have, that one's in Spanish. If you speak Spanish, we have it in Spanish. Okay, I'm going to do the count out. This is all we have left? Oh my God. That's it, huh? It looks like this is all we have left. There's 2 in English and 5 in Spanish. So 2 fortunate people can get it this morning. And then the rest of you can get it on Amazon. We're reprinting in the next few days. We're going to reprint. Okay. There's one for you. We're reprinting, but they're all in India, and I won't get them back to America for, 6 months or so. Español? No? Nada. Hare Krishna. So, yeah, okay. So we can, is that, yeah. So you know, whenever asking a question, how do you distinguish between two things which seem the same, but we know are different because one would be spiritual material? You look by symptom. And anything that's Krishna conscious brings you closer to Krishna and inspires you. Anything that's not pulls you away and depresses you. So you can be lamenting, I'm so fallen, I'm so bad, but that could be pulling you closer to Krishna. I'm so fallen, I'm so bad, Krishna, I need you. I'm not so fallen, I'm not so bad, Krishna, I don't need you. Or I'm so fallen, I'm so bad, why even try? You don't like me. You know, that's the most. I'm so fallen, Krishna doesn't like me. That's the low self-esteem. I'm so fallen, I need Krishna. That's humility. And I know He loves me. Okay, we can end here. We'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same station. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sisi Radha Kalachan ji ki jai, Go Premanandi.